Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the webinar on HTML5. I'm Romin Irani from Mindstorm Software, and I'll be taking you through the HTML5 demos as well as today. I wish to thank Spanedea for giving me another opportunity. So thanks once again for coming in, and let's begin with our HTML5 webinar. So what we'll be doing is going to various concepts of HTML5 and then looking at code and also seeing various examples in the browsers. So we're just going to take in the questions that people have been asking, and we'll take up a question one by one. We will also see that you will be able to see the question popped up on your screen over there. So Vinay asks, is HTML5 fully supported by all desktop and mobile browsers? The answer to that is no. It's not fully supported. Again, by fully support, what I mean over here is that the HTML5 specification is extremely vast, and there's just no way at this point in time that all the browsers, that is whether it's mobile or whether it's desktop, are supporting this. So I would suggest that roughly about 70 to 80% of the spec is supported by a lot of them. Key things to note, which is what we've covered today, is canvas, geolocation, local storage. These are the kinds of APIs that are well supported on mobile as well as desktop browsers. So I would suggest that you look at some of these areas of HTML5 which have got cross-browser support completely, and that start with those first. Eventually you can assume, but probably you're looking at a few years before they will all get supported fully. Next one. All right, the next question from Subodh is HTML5 a replacement for Flash? If you've been following news for the last couple of years, Flash is obviously the predominant mechanism by which rich user experiences are delivered within your browser. HTML5 is generally spoken of in the same terms that is going to be a Flash killer and things like that. But I would suggest not to get drawn down into that. I think there are a lot of features today that HTML5 supports that Flash also has similar support for. So if you're looking at using Flash just because it can support audio, video, or some of the other features that HTML5 supports, I suggest take a look at HTML5, because that will at least avoid your users from having plugins in their browsers and frequent updates. However, Flash has its own strong points when it comes to extremely rich user experiences, which are difficult, if not impossible, to create in HTML5. So I think depending upon your use case, you would have to look at these. But a lot of web apps that you want to create with great experiences today, HTML5 is possible. Go to sites like html5rocks.com, take a look at the gallery of examples, and you will notice that pretty rich experiences have been created today using HTML5. I wouldn't say it's a replacement. It's a replacement, not 100% as such, but in a lot of areas, it is an extremely good replacement. Okay, the next question is from Gaurav Kular. How does HTML5 match with technologies like Adobe Flex? Okay, Adobe Flex actually is primarily a programming or a development environment, and it's the applications that you write using Flex would ultimately be running within the Flash Player plugin itself in the browser, unless you are using Flex to also create desktop applications which run under a parallel thing from Adobe called Adobe AIR, which is again a runtime based on Flash. So I think the question is again mirroring the previous one. I think it's not about Adobe Flex, but it's about the runtime environment Flash. So from a runtime environment, HTML5 is today bringing to the table a lot of that Flash provides. Now, Adobe Flex also had a rich development IDE and tools to go with it. I would say that HTML5 is also finding its way into a lot of development tools like Dreamweaver, and various controls or widgets that are being written by people. The interesting thing to note is that recently Adobe, which is the company behind the Flex and Flash technologies, has also bought a company called PhoneGap, which are primarily using HTML5 and generating native apps on iOS, BlackBerry, and also, even a company like Adobe, whose product directly is at risk, has committed itself to HTML5 standards. So I would suggest from a developer perspective, it's extremely important that you move forward with HTML5. That will just retain your investment for the future. Next. Okay, Vinay asked, I have heard that HTML5 will be ready by 2022. Is that correct? This was actually one of the casual remarks that was passed by one of the HTML5 working group leads a while back. Everyone denies it, but basically what he meant by saying that was that by the time, I mean, just looking back, you know that most of the browser vendors typically are at war with each other. They'll have some different tags working in them. The other ones will have the other set working. So primarily it was just based on the experience that HTML4 is taken, 10, 12 years to come to the point that it is. So when do you think all the browser vendors will support it fully? So it was just an off-the-cuff remark saying, okay, by the time it's 2022, HTML5 will be supported, but you don't have to worry about it. It's not really 2022. I would suggest that 2014 is when they are expecting most browser vendors to support it uniformly. So we're looking at a couple of years from now, but even as of today, a lot of them support a majority of the spec. It's a great time to get started. Okay. Abhishek asks, would HTML5 and related technologies have an impact on desktop application, especially considering the new Microsoft Metro interface and support from other big corporations like Google? So good question. And definitely, because primarily driver, that is, if you look at Microsoft Metro, they are going to bank on HTML5 to deliver the next stage of desktop experiences. Google has always been a proponent of HTML5, and if you look at various applications from Google like Docs and Gmail and all, they use HTML5 to a large extent to store your offline data in various ways. Metro interfaces, there's a huge support for HTML5 from Microsoft. Today it's also possible using various tools like Accelerator, for example. What they do, they take HTML5 web applications and they're able to generate desktop applications on a variety of OSs. So the momentum behind HTML5 is huge. I think it can be a common language or a common platform by which developers can create applications, and it should definitely be able to work on different devices. Now what you need to understand from HTML5 is basically at the end of the day it's about JavaScript, it's about CSS, and it's about HTML tags. So from a developer perspective, these 3-4 technologies are key to understand and then deliver your applications. But yes, HTML5 is going to play a big impact not just in web but even desktop applications for sure. Hassan asks, can HTML5 be used for game development? Definitely. Primarily, people have been thinking that HTML5 can't write the kind of quality of games that Flash has been known for. That's no longer the case. Yes, it's a bit complicated at this point in time. You need to have a very good grasp of the Canvas 2D and 3D APIs that briefly looked at. But using those 2D and 3D APIs that HTML brings to the table is also supports SVGs, the scalable vector graphics. Definitely game development can be done. If you go to HTML5 rocks, or even if you just do a casual search on HTML5 games, you will find that a lot of people are writing these games today. And the nice part is it's going to be portable. For example, Apple devices, they don't run Flash. But instead, if you had ported your mobile game onto HTML5 based stuff, they could be able to play that. So look at HTML5 being another medium by which your games possibly can reach a much wider audience than they can today. Hassan asks again, what tools can we use to write HTML5 code today? I mean, the field is pretty much open over here, so you could use your normal text editor. No one is stopping you from doing that. You could use Eclipse, you can use Dreamweaver. So pretty much support is there for HTML5 in most development environments. And at the end of the day, as I said, if you feel like using Notepad, Vim, please move forward and use that. Nothing stops you from doing that. The next question is from Vinay. Can we host HTML5 apps in mobile application stores like iTunes or Google Play? The answer at this point in time is no. And by that, what I mean is you cannot submit pure web-based applications to these application stores. By that, what I mean is you can't host a site somewhere and say that my app is http something.com/app or things like that. That's not an acceptable submission to the app store. However, what you can do is you can have a completely mobile website and it is put inside a native container. So really on the iOS platform or the Android platform or even Microsoft, for example, you could simply embed a web site inside the native container. So you just got a very bland container which is a native app, but it's actually running the website for you. And a lot of sites are written in that way. Now that container you can go and submit to the application stores like iTunes or Google Play. But yes, it has to be a native application, not a pure web application that's hosted at a site. Arjun asks, what will happen if we try a particular HTML5 API and it is not supported by the browser? Sure. So as we mentioned earlier in some of the slides, you have to build in fallback support in case your browser is not supporting certain HTML5 API. So you will have to write code which first detects whether a particular feature is supported, and if not supported, maybe you degrade over to another sort of a page, or you move over to a simpler control and things like that. For example, if you got a date control, and if date control is not understood by your browser, it helps you by showing you as a simple text input itself. So the user can still go forward and use it. So there are also polyfills which sort of fill in the gaps when the particular browser doesn't support the HTML5 feature. But yes, at a high level, you as a developer have to take care of some of these things to make sure that the browser supports. If it supports, then move ahead with your code, else have some fallback behavior. Okay, Arjun asks, does Microsoft Internet Explorer support HTML5? Yes, it does, not to the degree that you have Chrome from Google or Firefox or even Opera and Safari supporting it. There is very minimal support right now. Even in i8, for example, you had support for local storage. But with i9, Microsoft is fully committed to HTML5. And if you run some of the Canvas API examples in i9, you'll find they work beautifully well. So definitely we are going to see more and more support from IE for HTML5, but I would suggest go in with IE9 and upwards of the browser to see actually the kind of support that Microsoft is bringing in. Please do not try with the older browser. It has one of the poorest supports in that. But definitely from a standard point of view, it's fully committed to HTML5. Just go to their sites and you will come to know the story. Okay, Vinay asks, can you suggest a good HTML5 reference site? Yes, the one that I covered earlier, towards the end of the presentation slides. I suggest go to html5rocks.com. This is a site from Google and it's very comprehensive in terms of articles, presentations, videos, what the current state of the APIs is, reference, links to the original specifications, demos. It's pretty much exhaustive in all its sense. So make that as your first stop and go into the areas that you would like to learn more about. It's quite nicely partitioned by different specifications also. Okay. Ishan Rastogi asks, what are the limitations of HTML5? I think in terms of limitations, nothing specific as such comes to mind, but I would say that the main challenge is going to be how are you going to create the right kind of experiences. So, when it comes to HTML5, obviously one is going to be its acceptance among different vendors, so that's good. Developers are picking up HTML5 and it's quite popular, so that's a good sign. I think development tools is one area that HTML5 can definitely improve in. It's got right now limited support from different IDEs and tools, but yeah, it's improving all the time. So you will find that tools for native development are much richer when it comes, but not in terms of HTML5 tools. That's one area. I think the other thing is going to be how quickly the browser vendors are going to support more and more of these standards, because at this point in time as a developer you have to figure out whether it supports or not, have fallback behaviors, have polyfills and things like that. So I think it's not really a work in progress, but you need to look at different parts carefully, see what's commonly used, and then move forward in your HTML5 journey. Okay, Madhvi Solanki asks, is it a good practice to draw views using HTML5 in native mobile apps? I would personally be of the opinion it's probably not, because if you are writing a native mobile application and when you move on to HTML5, you will have to embed the HTML5, sorry, not HTML5, but the web browser or the web container in it. So, there would be a slight, I would say, difference in terms of the experience. It would probably not be a smooth transition. But again, if you're looking at a pure HTML5 site, which you are just putting into a native container, then obviously it's a perfect thing to do. But if you are going to have a mix and match, you're going to have a hybrid kind of an application where there are various screens which are native, and then you have a mobile, a web control in it. Probably you will see a certain transition issue, but otherwise I think it should be fine. But you'll also have to ensure that the mobile operating system in which you're depending on is supporting the Canvas API. So you need to pay attention to that. Certain operating systems like the Symbian one may not support the Canvas API properly. Abhishek asks, how secure is local session storage, web SQL index versus a database? If you use browsers to store data, if it crashes, conventional or real-time connection is lost, etc. Okay. Now, I think there are two parts to this question. One is, if we are going to crash or if connection is lost, can we store the session data or not? And will it be available when we come back to it? Yes, that is not an issue. How secure it is, I think it's important that you apply normal security concepts to this, because when you are saving data into this, you are saving it as a name value. You can always use any encryption libraries to store your value. So basic security concepts do not go away. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Question from Jason Verghese. With regard to form validation, are there any other validations like email validations? Yeah, definitely. The moment you say that a particular attribute is required, the browser is going to take care of the type of the input. So if the type is email, if the type is phone number, if the type is a URL, it applies all those validations for you. Alternately, you can also apply a regular expression so that the browser can use that as a check to validate the kind of input that you're given. So pretty much you have full flexibility by using the standard ones or your regular expression of your own. Okay, we have a question from Ravi. How has the industry accepted HTML5? I think you just have to, go out, visit the sites, and see that there's tremendous support from not just the browser vendors. There's a very good support from in the developer community. There are excellent amount of tools available, and with this whole cross-platform promise, where it's not possible for people to write applications every time natively for different platforms, HTML5 is becoming sort of a way by which you can write applications and have it available on all platforms. So there's excellent support. There's a lot of demand even for developers who have good hold over HTML5 standards. So it's looking extremely good at this point in time, and it's only going to increase. Okay. Abhishek asks, how will HTML5 impact JavaScript libraries like jQuery UI? In fact, it won't impact it at all. jQuery as well as jQuery mobile, or even if you take Sencha and all of these, at the end of the day, they are JavaScript APIs. They are using, HTML. They're using CSS. So what these libraries are doing is they are adapting. They are incorporating HTML5 features within their frameworks itself. So they are going to stay. They're only going to get stronger. However, the nice thing is you're going to also get HTML5 support in them. So thank you once again for attending the webinar. It's been enjoyable having you all. Have a nice evening.